Yes, we are. Hello, welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday to y'all. I hope that you're doing well. Today we are talking about why is it so hard to tell people when we are upset with them. This is a common thing I see that keeps coming up. So I want us to kind of get down, talk about it. I really want y'all to interact. Y'all always do. Y'all are always so amazing, but I really want y'all to interact and tell me why you feel like it's hard. If it is something that you personally struggle with, telling people when they've hurt your feelings, telling people when you felt slighted, telling people when you feel misunderstood and you kind of hold on to it and you don't let people in and then you kind of stew in it and then you get more and more upset about it. I really want us to look and see why is this happening and what we can do about it. Okay, so hi Yolanda. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, my name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal. What I do here is I help women heal from the symptoms of love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation, and the trauma that causes it to make way for healthy love in your life. Healthy love primarily first with yourself and by relationship with everybody else, with lovers, with family, with children, with your friends, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about. Hello, April. You said you literally just cried about it. Okay, well, we're going to talk about it. Hello, Rose from Concrete, my fave. Good to see you. So let's go ahead and jump in. So let's talk about why this is important. Why it's very important for you to tell people when you are upset, when it is happening. If not in the moment, later on. I think there is wisdom in waiting to kind of hold on to your feelings sometimes to see, is this actually me? Is it them? Is this them? Am I projecting it? But if something has happened that has caused you is emotional distress, especially if it's connected to your trauma, it is so important for you to tell people that because one, your feelings matter. Your feelings matter. Your ability to feel safe with people matters. And people are not mind readers. People, I'm going to say that again. People are not mind readers. What you think is obvious, what you think is clear, what you think is truly something that no one could ever possibly miss, sometimes it is not clear. Sometimes they do not know. Sometimes they miss the cue. Sometimes their tolerance level is different than yours. Sometimes there's miscommunication that's happening in the moment, right? And it's only until you communicate what you need and what you feel that that person has an opportunity to fix it, to rectify it, to make it better. And when you don't give someone an opportunity to make something better, you're robbing them. You're robbing a few things. You're missing the mark on a few things. One, you're missing the opportunity for them to make it right and make it better. And you're also missing the opportunity to feel that healing. How many of y'all have had things happen to you, which, you know that you can't go back in time or the person can't go back in time to fix it or rectify it. But what really hurt is that you never got an apology for it. What was really the most painful is that there was no resolution and them owning up to it. Now think about how many instances for you was because they didn't know what was happening. And that's why you didn't get the apology, because you were trying to hold it in and you were trying to say, well, I'll just deal with it myself, because you made a judgment about what you thought they would say or what you thought they were going to do, which is one of the things we're going to talk about. Or is it someone who intentionally was avoidant? I would put money that's probably half and half. That probably the reason why it could be hard for you to share your experience with people is because you've tried to do this with people who are unavailable and they've made it your fault. They projected it onto you. They've made excuses for it. They made it seem like you were too sensitive. They gaslit you or something. And because of those experiences, that has stopped you from expressing it to people who are healthy, who wanted to be there for you. And so because of that, you have this whole recurring cycle where when you try to attempt to be close to people and give them a chance, you end up being burned. And that's to talk to people. And then you're like, okay, let me try and do this healthy thing. And you're like with someone who's supposed to be healthy. And then they hurt your feelings. And you don't tell them. And you're like, see, that's why I don't trust people. Right. So you're totally just boxed in a reality, in a cycle that you're not able to get out of, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. I see the comments. I haven't been reading them because I needed to finish my thought. Y'all know how I can go. So Kaylau says, I feel like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like I resolved the problem by not pushing the issue. I'm going to come back to that one. Hello, Candy. Let me see. I think it's hard because I'm worried about the reaction. Yep. Feel like Masetta says you feel like your reality is going to be denied or you're going to be called silly. Exactly what parents would do to me when I was young. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's Make It Right says, what if they're slow for real? If you're talking to someone, I'm going to translate slow to mean I'm live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For those of y'all who are like, where's she looking? I'm looking at multiple cameras. I'm going to translate someone who is slow as someone who's not emotionally aware, someone who's not emotionally intelligent. And if that's the case, then you might want to look at where do I have this person in my inner circle level. So what I mean by that is sometimes we can have people who are not able to hold space for us in the way that we will hold space for them as our best friends. And then we keep getting hurt, right? Versus saying, you know, I really like this person. I dig this person. I vibe with them, but this isn't going to be mutual. So maybe they are not best friend material. Maybe they need to be a little bit on the outskirts. Okay. Now, if they are slow for real, meaning that they're not picking up what you're putting down, I think this goes straight to the topic of today, which is telling people when you're upset. I would poke at when you say slow, are you dropping hints? Are you directly telling them when this happened, my feelings were hurt? When I don't hear from you, it makes me feel really sad. When I don't get to spend time with you, I feel really lonely. Are you saying those words? Or are you dropping hints like, man, I guess I'm not really going to get to see you? That's a statement. That is not an explanation. That does not tell the person that you want to spend time with them. That is you. That is a statement. And so if they're like, yeah, I'm busy, then you're going to be like, because you were making a bid, you were wanting them to read through the lines that you missed them and that you want more time because they're like, yeah, that's right. You're like, oh, that's right. Okay, I got you. See who's going to answer your phone call now. See if I respond to your text. Since you ain't got time for me, you create a whole thing because you did not use your adult words and then use adult feelings and make a vulnerable request. Because there's risk in that, right? That's what someone else was saying. There's risk in telling someone, you know what? When you didn't respond to me, you left me on red. I felt like you didn't care and I felt like you were ignoring me, right? That's risky. It's easier to make a joke about it. It's easier to what someone else said to just deal with it yourself, which only reinforces the belief that I just got to live life on my own, right? And who likes to live life on your own? We live life on our own because we learned that we had to. We live life on our own because we've been burned or hurt by somebody before when we tried to trust them. And because of the circumstances, that's why we decided to live life on our own, because it was too dangerous not to, not because we wanted to. Nobody comes into this world. No 2 or 3-year-old comes into this world saying, okay, well, let me get my little Pokemon knapsack and go live in the wild by myself. Like, we learn to hold things in because we learned somewhere that it wasn't safe to do so. And it gets reinforced that it's not safe to do so by who we choose to be connected to. And also what I'm talking about today, our own self-accountability. We are a part of the equation, y'all. I just posted a video. I did a highlight in our recovery school coaching program, which is the way that I help women break these cycles. As y'all know, or maybe you don't know, the recovery school is my coaching program for women to work through their symptoms of love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation. And you can join at any time. It's open. But this week, I posted a highlight of one of our lessons called abuse and how it looks in our relationships. So a lot of times when we talk about abuse, we look at, okay, how do we know that the partner or person that we're around is abusive towards us? We look for those warning signs, which is good. And we need to do that. But what if we are the ones that are creating distance and being abusive to partners because we don't know how to attach them? Because we're so afraid of being hurt that it's easier for us to push someone away and to create emotional distance and to create chaos, right? And it's almost like testing them to see how they deal with it, to see how much they love you. Or what I was saying in the video, sometimes we're just not used to things being good. I told the story in the video how one way that I realized that I was doing this and I was kind of being avoidant is I had an ex-partner who, whenever I would be hanging out with him and like we would just be chilling, like nothing would be happening, I would like go and like, punch him in the arm or push him or say, you get on my nerves, or like kind of like pick a little fight, not a real fight, but like pick a little fight. And one day he called me on it. He was like, Sheena, I know when you're trying to get closer to me, because instead of you just reaching out and touching me, you'll punch me, or you'll like, I'm not gonna tell you everything I would do. I would do something silly and foolish instead of just saying, you know what, you look really cute today, or I feel so safe with you, or I really like you. Can you hold me? I just want to get close to you. Like I wouldn't be able to verbally say that. But I would do something else that would be some form of connection. Why did I do that? Because I hadn't seen it modeled before, because I didn't know what it looked like to be vulnerable in that way. Because even when I thought about that, even when he said it, and I like imagined just like touching him without something else, like without like cracking a joke or something in the middle, it stressed me out. Like I literally had to train myself to go when I wanted to touch him to just I would go, let's say this was his shoulder or something, this was him, and I would be like, I would have to like breathe through it. And he would be like, good. So it's like, what part, like where does their part start, where does ours end, and where does it overlap, right? Okay, I haven't even gotten to why it's hard, but y'all are talking. Okay, so Chantel, I'm still way at the top, y'all. I see all the hearts, so hopefully y'all are laughing with me and not at me all the time, making a judgment. Cloudboard says I never expect an apology, but here's the thing: there's a difference between expecting an apology because you need it to move forward, right? Like I think there is wisdom in when people say like, people don't necessarily owe you anything, kind of in that way. I think I know what you're saying. I think. But what I want to get across is it's okay that in relationships that are built in love and mutual connection, for you to expect and hold a standard that people who love you. And if they love you, they're going to want to make it better. That your friends, loved one, lover, partner, whoever will be more upset with the idea that you were holding on to something and you didn't tell them, versus relief. Oh, great, I'm happy she didn't bring that to me. That they would be pissed. They're like, you've been hurt this whole time and you didn't tell me, right? Like that's love. And you're robbing that person on being able to take care of you. And you're robbing yourself on the ability to know that you don't always have to live life on your own. It doesn't have to be that way. Okay. Chantel says, in the past, I was told it was nagging, so I opted out. Yeah. So who we partnered with, right? Because here's what I'll say. Let's say, let me go along with the self-accountability track for a minute, right? Because y'all know I'm a big proponent for telling people what you think. I've made that very clear. But let's say this person had a point. The nagging. Nagging can also be synonymous with every time we talk, there's something that I'm doing wrong because there's not enough balance with what I'm doing right. This is another thing that I also had to learn from the relationships that I saw and that were modeled in front of me. There wasn't any of the softness and like, I really appreciate you and I'm grateful for you and you make my life better. Everything was everybody talking about, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do this. And so for someone who's healthy, if all they hear from you is what they're doing wrong, and there's never any building and never any appreciation and never any gratitude for anybody, that gets old. And that can feel like nagging and complaining and you're bringing me down. So if we're doing the self-accountability thing, let's say that was actually what was happening, then it's up to me to say, okay, how can I build up my partner in addition to telling them what I need? Like the compliment sandwich that we talk about a lot, that we hear about a lot, right? Like, do I always have to start with something that's going to get them down? And if so, why is that? Right? Is there something that I've learned where I have to assert dominance when I'm talking about my feelings to make sure you know how I feel, because I'm expecting you to tell me that you don't care, right? So I'm going to make sure that you know, and I'm going to get my point across, because it's not safe, or it's too easy, or I'm coddling you to say, you know what? I see how you've really been trying to communicate so much more with me lately, and I really appreciate it. And I love to see how you're listening to me. And I really would really appreciate it if, you were able to work on emptying the trash a little bit more often, because it would really make life easier for me. So I'm not tripping on it when I get out the door. Like, can we start with that before we go to why is this trash here? Now that's the benefit of the doubt. If you're with someone who's unavailable, it doesn't matter how you make a request. When people don't value you, and when they don't see you as a partner and they see you as someone to be tolerated, it doesn't matter how much you fluff it up. It doesn't matter how loving and kind you are. They do not want to be there, and they do not want to support you. So they are going to criticize you and make it seem like you're asking for the world and asking for too much. Right? So you have to be the one to see, okay, well, who am I dealing with? How am I showing up? Because you know the situation. I don't know the situation. People don't want to hear criticism. It's hard to hear. I feel attacked. Someone said, I have this going on with someone when I tell them things that they immediately get defensive. Yeah. So, okay, let me keep going. How do you differentiate if you're actually feeling those feelings or just being a bit dramatic / feeling extra sensitive, or on the time of the month feelings? Y'all, look, I teach this stuff and I give people disclaimers when I'm on my period. I'm like, look, hey, she's here. And also, I just know, no matter how logically aware I am of it, I just know my brain is going to brain, and my chemicals are going to chemical, and my hormones are going to hormone. So that doesn't stop me from not feeling extra sad and sensitive that day, So I'm still going to communicate what I feel, but depending on who the person is, I may give the disclaimer, hey, by the way, I'm on my cycle, but this is what I'm feeling, right? And because I've surrounded myself with people who are healthy, I don't worry that someone's going to use that against me later on and be like, well, you know how you are in your cycle. Like, the people who I'm surrounded with, the friendships, the more than friendships, the family members, they use that to understand me more. Kristen says, great information. I love listening to your words. You're so knowledgeable. Thank you, love. Monet says you look great. Hey, love. Thank you. I appreciate that. Chantel says, yes, say that. No matter how much we don't want to own it, we very much play a part in the demise of our relationships, be it major or not. Absolutely. Here y'all all laughing at me. So Rose from Concrete says, I'm a puncher and a sarcastic one too. It sounds embarrassing to say I want to be close to you, so I'll push him instead. Yeah. And look, what we want is a deep, intimate, safe love. And at the same time, it can be the most terrifying thing to move closer to and to move into and to trust, right? And so what do? We get partners and friends who are on the same wavelength, right? The ones who, when you do something avoidant, they will take it, or they won't move forward to you, or they won't push it, I've said this before, people think often that once you get your relationships, I guess the people I work with, because, I work with love addiction, love avoidance. So the people who are in this container, we talk about romantic partnerships, right? So a lot of the times people who work with me is because they want to either make their marriage or their committed partnerships better, or they want to be more open, or they want to improve their self-esteem so that they can be more healthy in their friendships or family relationships, right? So, I forgot what I was going to say. Child, this ADHD is ADHD. I'll come back to it. I know it will circle back around because it's connected to something I wanted to say later. Hi, beautiful queen. First time catching your live. Your podcast is amazing. Thank you, boo. I'm happy that you enjoy it. Okay, let me go ahead and jump into why this is hard, because I think this is going to circle back to something that someone else said that I didn't comment fully on. Today, y'all, we're talking about, for those of you who are just joining, we're talking about why it's hard to tell people when we're upset. I talked about how it's really important for us to tell people when we are upset, because it doesn't give them the opportunity to fix it. And when we try to hold on to it, it grows. One of the biggest misconceptions that I see that people make when it comes to this area, for the people who say they just hold on to it and deal with it themselves, that statement makes it sound as if it's just neutral and it's in the air. I dealt with it and it's over. But that's not what happens. When someone does something that upsets you or hurts you or triggers you, and you deal with it yourself, the way that you deal with it yourself is you have to be able to describe and define what happened, why it happened, and what their intentions were. And you got to feel all that in yourself, because you're not telling them. You're not getting their intention. You're not getting their apology. You're not getting their reframe. You're only using your own source of knowledge and what you know about people and what you know about the world. So if you come from a place where it's hard for you to trust people because people let you down, where I can't depend on anybody anyways, people don't understand me, people are not as good as me at actually being respectful, whatever those things are, you're going to fill in the story of why and how and their intention of why they did that on your own along those lines, which is going to plant a seed for what you believe about that person, their intentions. So you may never say anything to them, but trust has been broken. Trust has been broken. And you have now created a story about who they are and their intentions. So now every single time something happens, it reinforces that story. And they are silently gathering all of these negative X's against them that fulfills the story that you've created because you didn't tell somebody what they did when they made you upset. And it's just doubling it down. They're digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and they have no idea they are losing with you. Until one day, you who say you're dealing with it by yourself, and I don't even care, as you are making more and more, I see the heart, so this is connecting to y'all. As you're creating more and more distance from them because you don't trust them, because they hurt you, and because you're peeping, like with what the story you've created, you peep how they are, right? You peep that they really aren't trustworthy, that they're not emotionally available, right? Well, meantime, they think everything's honky-dory, until one day there's a final straw that they don't even know is the final straw, and you are done. You're done. There's no going back. You might even at this point, because it's the final straw, you might say something now, because you got months and years of all this information of how they've been hurting you, but you'll say something about the final one. And it doesn't matter what they say to try to fix it, because you've been creating this whole story on your own without giving them the opportunity to show up for you. They could lay the street in gold in front of you. The bridge has been burnt. It's too late, right? So you can miss the opportunity to have really, really great connections with people when you don't tell them what's going on. And also, you miss the opportunity to see that your point of view is not always the right point of view. I think I said in the previous live, my discernment is on point, y'all. I have world-class intuition and discernment. I can read people. I can read the room. I'm good. My gut always leads me in the right path until it doesn't. Until there's something that is connected to a part of my trauma that I'm not aware of, and I make an assumption that someone believes something or knows something or is thinking something about me that's connected to an insecurity that either I'm still working on or I'm not even aware is there. And it's only until I actually check the facts by having a conversation with them and moving forward that my world can be open to say, wait, so that's not what happened? This isn't a fundamental truth in the world? And then I'm able to say, oh, okay. Whoops. Whoops. Which helps me have healthy relationships with other people down the road because I communicated what I needed. And even if what I feel and what I intuit is correct, me showing up for myself and saying what I need and standing up for myself is still healing. It still heals the inner little Sheena that didn't really have an opportunity for someone to show up for her and protect her and love on her. Is that making sense? Let me know if that's making sense in the chat, y'all. Okay. Let me know if that's making sense. And if you're ready for the other reasons why it's hard for us to tell people why we're upset, put a heart in the chat. I know I'm looking at my list. I know I've already hit on many of these, but officially for me to tell y'all, if you are someone who tends to be avoidant and you don't communicate when things have hurt you, and you're not even, a lot of that is you're not even aware of your own emotions and where it comes from and the trauma and stuff. Those are the things that we talk about in the recovery school, y'all. So would love to have you there for us to work through it. So you can go to therecoveryschool.com and we'll start talking about it there. Okay, so it makes perfect sense. Yes, preach. Got the hearts. Britt says, absolutely. Sheena, what up, boo? Says, yes, I've always had trouble showing up for myself in a vocal way. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about it. Again, many of these I've already said or like interwoven in what we've been discussing. I feel like I'm going to get a phone call. So Instagram, if I get a phone call and it comes through and y'all can't hear me, as always, let me know. Instagram be playing me, man. Okay, so first one is mind reading. A lot of times we don't tell people what we feel when we're upset or when we're triggered because we assume that we know what they're going to say. And this is even when it's something that's really small. So sometimes even the smallest of transgressions can be hurtful for us because our trust is so delicate. And even as trusting that someone is going to be available for lunch the next day, or, you know, they promise that they would talk to someone for us on our behalf, we can say, oh, well, I know they're going to say I'm sorry anyways. Like, let's say that you do have faith that they're a good person. And so you're going to be like, I know that they're going to say sorry anyways. And so you don't tell them, even though what you needed in that moment is to be heard. You know, I think we underestimate how powerful it can be to have someone's eyes on us and have them receive us, especially if we've lived a life where we've been ignored and neglected in this way, that even in those little moments that they're powerful for us and they help reinforce that what we feel and what we think matters. I didn't put this on the list, but now that I said that, it's hard for us to tell people we're upset because we can commonly devalue our own emotions. We can think our own emotions are not that big of a deal. You can tell yourself you're being too sensitive. You can tell yourself that, you know, such and such wouldn't even care about this. So why do I? And you'll gaslight yourself to just try to work through it on your own, not knowing that your emotions and your feelings matter. I'm going to say that like 80 times. Your emotions and your feelings matter. Another reason that we don't tell people when we're upset is we mind read via assuming rejection. So I saw several people talk about that today. Like, we assume that they're not going to care. We assume that they're going to nag us. We assume that they are going to discount us. What I was saying earlier too is I kept saying we need to look at who we are talking to. So I talked about how the first week of the year I did a mini workshop called the Relationship Goal Setting Workshop. And in that, I broke down our system to figure out, are the people I'm around available versus unavailable? because when we're not actually assessing who is good for us, we will keep doing these really great communication skills with the wrong people and keep getting burned. One of the things that I would always have to teach coaching clients at the beginning, and even my therapy clients, is they would talk about the reason they would really want to give these unavailable partnerships another chance, and why they would feel like they were doing the right thing, is because they would tell me, Sheena, you'd be so proud of me. I told them how I felt, and I told them this is what I needed, and this is my expectation, and I showed up. And I'm thinking, girl, that man wasn't listening to you. Like, I am so happy that you said that, but I want you to not give your pearls, to not give your precious heart, to not give your vulnerability to someone who couldn't care less. Don't share your heart with someone who doesn't have the skills, the desire, the want, the intelligence, the emotional maturity to show up for you. And then wonder, and then that buys time, because you're like, well, I expressed it, so let me see how they show up. Girl, we need to bring this all back. We need to take this back 5-10 steps, right? I am going to say this until I'm blue in the face. I'm going to say this forever. People show you the red flags from the beginning. From the beginning. You decide, depending on your own trauma and your own threshold, what you will take. And what you will take is probably something I wouldn't take, because our trauma maps look different, right? I could be talking to somebody and something crazy happened, and you'd be like, girl, I would never. And I'll be looking at your story and you're like, I could never do that either. And it's only by us realizing and healing those parts of ourselves that were neglected that we will be able to see when someone is showing us that they're not going to be available. Once you know, it's up to you to do something about it. That's my point. Once someone shows you that they are not able or willing and don't want to show up for you, it's not for you to practice patience. It's not for you to negotiate. It's not for you to say, well, everybody's human. It's for you to own, I deserve to be loved in a way that I want to be loved. I don't have to say that this is a horrible person, right? And I think that's also the hard part, especially when I get connected to people who are already in love with someone, or already have a lot of time and baggage. They think because of what they've heard that for them to make a break, that means they have to hate this person. No, you can have all the love in the world for this person. You can also still be in love with them. What I'm trying to inspire you to know and to own is that I want you to be so in love with yourself that if that kind of stuff, if that stuff was happening to your homegirl, you would be pissed. You would be like, you don't deserve that. But when it comes to you, it's like, well, I know. It's hard. I'm trying. You know, and there's a difference. You know, I was talking to someone the other day. One of the things that I share about why I started this platform, some of you know my story. I'm a therapist by trade, and I got into love addiction because I didn't think love addiction was a thing. And then come and find out your girl was running a little bit wild in these streets emotionally and otherwise. But the reason why I started this platform is because love addiction really put into words how you can and do things that are against common sense. So before finding out about love addiction, I would follow all of the good relationship advice. Loving myself, communicating, whatever, right? All the dating advice. But that stuff doesn't work with love addicts. It doesn't work with us because there is a trauma response that is underneath that bypasses the common sense. It bypasses the logic. It bypasses all of that stuff that makes it reflexive. So when you reflexively and impulsively connect to someone who's unavailable, or reflexively and impulsively don't show up for yourself, or reflexively and impulsively push away someone who's good for you, If you're not connected to the fact that this is a trauma response, you're going to feel shame. And you're going to talk to other people who are just like, Sheena, just do it differently. Or they make it seem so simple, but this stuff is not simple, y'all. It is not simple. I don't want you to feel like anything that I ever say here that is going to be as easy as for you to be like, okay, got it. Let me write it in my journal and go and execute. It's going to make sense, but you executing on it is going to be scary. You're going to try to do it and it's going to feel like it's not going to land, right? And that's okay, because I think that reinforces, hopefully that reinforces that this is not a you thing, that this is something that starts deeper. So we got to do deeper work to uncover it, right? That if it was as simple as just willpower and doing alternative behavior, we wouldn't be talking right now. Like, I don't know. What would I be doing right now? I don't even know what I'd be doing right now. I love what I do. Who knows what I'll be doing right now? I think I might be an eye doctor. No, that's boring. Boring for me. Sorry, I love my optometrist. For me, I used to want to be an eye doctor when I was younger. That is not on the topic today. Let me know if that's making sense, y'all. Scrolling back up to see the comments I missed. Someone said, baby, that man didn't give a damn. You waste your breath talking to that man. And sometimes they do give a damn, but they're just not healthy. They're not able to show up. Y'all, someone can be a really great person. They could be a really great person, but that doesn't mean that they're your person. And when we come from a place of lack and scarcity, we can want to make a good thing fit. And good is the enemy of great, y'all. Good is the enemy of great. Oh, this is where I was going with what I was saying earlier. Especially the last several things that I've shared and TikToks and stuff like that, I've talked a lot about don't make space for people who don't want you. And someone who I really love and really admire, and I know they were coming from a good place, but they're also securely attached. And they're in a very healthy, loving relationship. And they talked with their partner about the feedback that I was giving in the TikToks. And they were like, yeah, so I just wanted to share, I talked to my partner and they were like, what do you think about this? And they mutually gave a contrary opinion that basically the paraphrase of it is that nobody is perfect, that partners need to give grace to one another, that sometimes you are in a long-term committed partnership, you're with someone who does, take you for granted sometimes, or you might feel ignored and neglected. And I'm like, what you're talking about is not what I'm talking about. I do not preach and I do not teach this golden goose philosophy that someone should always be laid out at your feet, kissing your toes, doing everything that you want. And if they don't do that, that means that they don't love you and they're neglecting you. I'm talking about people who will let you emotionally suffer and feel alone and neglected and be unfaithful to you and compare you to other people and let you carry the whole load of the household mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, let you get sick, let all these things happen and just completely blame you for it or say they're too busy or say whatever. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the people who don't love you and don't value you. But I think when we look at the good relationship advice that doesn't acknowledge the perpetual pattern of someone who has the types of trauma patterns of love addiction and love avoidance, that in a room of 100 people, we're not going to pick the securely attached person that we're going to have to negotiate partnership and living arrangements with. We're going to pick the person who's going to ignore us, avoid us, neglect us in the same way that our mama, daddy, granny, uncle did. Right? And I want y'all to be aware that happens. And that's what that is. And that's why it's not working. Not because you're not communicating enough, not because you're being too picky, not because whatever else, but because you're dealing with what I said somewhere else, is you're trying to make a cake like someone else is making, but you have different ingredients. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work. No matter how much you want it to. No matter how much you mix it up, it's not going to work. Skills, desires, wants, and emotional security. Wow. Trauma map. So, trauma map, you put that as a question mark, like what does that mean? I guess another way to say it, just so I'm not going way off, is like our trauma stories and just how everything is interconnected. Yeah, how everything is interconnected within our background. Okay. Biker Monflora says, been there, all that, and now I'm divorced from it and him. Y'all, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to keep going. Am I going to say this? I think I'm going to say this. Am I? There is a section of people in this world. When we think about divorces, there are some people who, when they go through a divorce, it is the most painful experience that they have gone through. Even if they feel like they know it needed to happen, there's a mourning and there's pain that comes from it. And then there's another group of us who, because of how much we suffered in the way that I listed, the way that I described, and how painful that was, and how degrading or depleting and depressing it was, that the divorce that you may have been avoiding because you were trying to make something work that wasn't built to work, it becomes a point of celebration. That it is the most freeing experience that you can ever have. That you regain yourself, that there are no tears, that you can actually breathe again. And I think that that's okay for that to be your experience. And I think that's okay for you to own. Yep, so there we go in the comments. Infinity says, amen, best money I've ever spent. Biker Monflora said that second group is all me. Yes, yes. And I think that, you know, we talk about Black women and struggle love and all this stuff. And I think that there are many of us that are in relationships with good people that actually qualifies as struggle love, but because that person isn't beating you or calling you names and like the classic forms of abuse, you're taking it. You're taking it and just thinking it'll get better. This is like the different chapters that people talk about where things are hard. And again, chances are that this is how the relationship started. And you are not Build-A-Bear. You're not Build-A-Bear. You're not Bob the Builder. And like I always say, you're not on the clock, right? And so you get to decide the type of life you want to live. And if it's time for you to break that generational curse or that generational trauma of being in relationships with partners that don't respect their other people that they're with, then you get to be a part of that story. That gets to be a point of celebration versus a point of failure, right? Both of those are just as equal. People who get to model healthy relationships and people who get to show other generations of people around them how to own their worth so that they can be in relationships that are more reciprocal and mutual. Okay. Velocity says, I am in the second group. Awesome. Congrats. Hi, Jessica. Hello. Okay, back to my list. Why is it hard to tell people when we're upset? Increased ego. So this might not be the right way to say this, but I'm going to talk it out and hopefully it makes sense. So sometimes we don't tell people when we are upset with them or when they've hurt our feelings because we have this belief that they should know and they should notice. That if I was actually important to them, then they would be looking out for how I feel and what I'm thinking. And because they didn't notice, that means they don't care. Not keeping in mind that not only does this person have a whole other life, what I said at the beginning, that they're not mind readers. It's really interesting how this works because at the same time that someone can feel very insecure and feel not enough and feel ignored and neglected, there's also a part that sometimes can overcompensate and you believe you're the center of other people's worlds, right? And I don't know if it's a defense mechanism because it's another way to kind of like test people sometimes. Like if they don't notice when I'm upset, they never cared versus you didn't tell people that you needed help and support. Especially if you're someone who tends to hold things in all the time and people aren't used to expressing your emotions, your feelings. And then you're like, well, this time I wanted them to ask me, you know, like how are people supposed to know that? right? Who's in charge of taking care of you? This is a question I want y'all to answer. Who is the person who's in charge of taking care of you? And I'll wait. Who's in charge of taking care of you? You. And taking care of you means taking care of yourself, not only physically, but most emotionally and mentally and spiritually, financially, all those things, right? Sexually, all those things. And taking care of you is not, to go back to one of the things I was saying at the beginning of the live, taking care of you emotionally and mentally is not taking the emotions that come up when someone hurts you or disrespects you or ignores you or neglects you, and then taking those big emotions and putting them in a little box and tying up the box and tucking it in your pocket so nobody sees. That's not taking care of your emotions. That's ignoring your emotions. That's repressing your emotions. The way that you honor your emotions, these big emotions, is you take them and you hold them and you say, I get why you would feel this way. That would hurt me too. This is a little bit of inner child work. That would hurt me too. I'm so sorry that happened. What do you need from me? How can I support you? And then, again, since we're doing inner child work, if someone hurts your little girl, if someone hurts your inner child, you're going to tell them. You're going to tell them, hey, this little girl right here, when you said that to her, when you did that to her, that didn't feel good. And what I would want is for you to not only know that, but next time do this. Or this is what this is what she needs, right? Because I didn't like that. That's how you honor yourself. That's how you take care of yourself. That's how you reparent yourself. That's how you show up as big you for little you. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. And then I'll keep going. Let's make it right, said God, because I get tired. Yeah. So I think about the Psalms, and one of the things that is so like common when anybody talks about David and talks about the Psalms is one of the things that made David so powerful is that he was telling God everything that he felt. That he wasn't like, oh, well, it'll be okay and oh, it'll be better. Like he wasn't repressing his emotions. He was going at it. He was expressing it, right? So yeah, there's this place of surrender, but it's the place of repression that we don't want to have. Okay. Sheena says, but do we waste our time doing that on people who genuinely haven't shown they care? No. No. So here's the thing. The answer is no, but my but that I want to say first is sometimes, especially those of us who are cutoff queens, so those of us who are very avoidant, and people have this much of a I don't even know what it is, like this much of a tail before we're like, you're done, you're out of here. Sometimes we cut off people because we assume that they don't care. Remember, I was talking about making up stories because we didn't express it, and our stories are always aligned with our already internal beliefs. And so we believe that they don't care when really they could absolutely care, but we haven't actually tried to communicate it. I am a proponent for giving people a chance. And even when I'm not even trying to give people a chance, I think about what is it that I need. So for better or for worse, sometimes when people hurt my feelings, I hold on to it. I hold on to it for like a day just to make sure that what I'm feeling is actually me versus them, and to give myself a chance to actually think about what I want to say. I think part of that is because I watched people who came before me not have a filter and say exactly what they felt. And I was like, oh, you should have thought about that a little bit, or you could have said that in a whole different way. So sometimes I'll overcorrect. One thing I'm working on is saying things more in the moment. But my point, that's not even my point. My point is I check in to see what does Sheena need? Do I need to express it? Because sometimes someone will do something. I don't always, every time someone like hurts my feelings or something, I don't like spend my time sending texts and emails and having conversations with people anytime I get triggered, because I would have to spend my days doing that, you know? But if there is something big or small that I'm like, you know what, I don't think that I would actually be able to like let this go without it affecting how I feel about this person or whether or not I feel safe, I'll tell them. And I'll give them an opportunity to respond to me, right? And I'm not coming with accusations. I'm like, hey, when this thing happened yesterday, it really hurt my feelings. And sometimes I even give concessions. I'm like, you might not have intended for it to do that, but I just wanted to let you know because I didn't want to hold on to it. And because I'm connected to healthy people, I don't fear backlash. I don't fear them going off on me. I don't fear them holding grudges, you know, because I've taken the time to cultivate and create available people around me. Right, those are the people in my inner circle. The people who are dangerous, one, they don't get that close to me. They don't get the privilege to be close to me. Also, because I'm clear on who they are, when or if they do those things, I'm kind of already expecting it because I see where they are emotionally. So I'm not going to go to someone who's a little bit narcissistic or a lot of bit narcissistic and someone who's defensive and whatever. And then when they say something that's off, I'm like, oh, I can't believe they said that. Like I knew who I was dealing with. So what do? I limit my time around them if I'm around them at all. Sometimes I proactively tell them this is what our conversation is going to look like and this is what we're going to talk about. Like I show up for myself. And that's probably a whole other conversation because I know that makes sense, but also there's probably more thoughts or questions that come along with that. But did that answer your question, Sheena? Sheena's my name twin. She and I go back. Went to school together. Cloud says, so basically we have to talk to ourselves how we want others to talk to us. Yes, it starts with us. The way that you know, one way, I'm not going to say the way, one way that you will know that you are being loved is giving yourself the love that you want others to give you is absolutely the easiest template to start to create changes in the relationships around you. When you spend time, even if you don't feel like you're spending time, but when you kind of have this like desire that like, man, I wish I could have friends and lovers and people who love me in this big, amazing way. But meanwhile, the way you talk to yourself is like crap. And you don't nurture yourself and you don't give yourself pleasure and give yourself fun and give yourself love and all that stuff. When it's in front of you, you're not even going to recognize it because your life isn't filled with it. You know, it's going to come and it's going to feel foreign. It's going to feel too much. It's going to feel, no, that's not quite what I'm looking for. But then someone who is fun and an outgoing, but also unavailable in some way, you'll be like, oh, that's love. Yes, because that's what your template is still attached to. You're still neglecting yourself. So, of course, you're going to be attracted to people who neglect you as well. So, okay. All right. The last ones before I sign off, unless y'all have more questions. So if y'all have questions, comments, feel free to share. This has been a great conversation so far. Y'all are amazing. I love y'all so much. One other reason why it's hard to tell people when we're upset is because they become the representation for abandonment / rejection. So even more so, you don't want to talk to them about it. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes you don't want to tell people when you're upset is because whether or not you're intentionally doing it in your mind or not, they have become a symbol for people before who have abandoned you or neglected you. So it's not only that you don't want to tell them because what they did hurt your feelings, but it's what they did. Plus, it reminds you of the time your mama didn't show up for you, or every other time, you tried to trust somebody, they didn't show up for you. And now what could have been like a smaller conversation, you don't want to have it because it's so overwhelming. Like, see, this kind of like what I'm saying earlier, like this always keeps happening. Every time I try to open up, I try to talk and I try to let people in. I'm not talking to them. What's the point of talking to them? because this person's indiscretion represents all the other indiscretions before. Hopefully that makes sense, right? And so that could be really hard to work through, just honestly, because the emotions feel so big and they feel so intense and it feels so insurmountable that even if they said, I'm sorry, it wouldn't matter because it doesn't undo all the things that happened before, right? Which is really reasons why we need to be in recovery from this, y'all. We need to be talking about this and working on it and not just being like, I'll keep this stuff in mind. So when it comes in front of me, I'll deal with it then. No. The work has to start before. The work has to start before. In my coaching program, the process that I talk about, I call it the Bloom method. And one of the things that we do at the very beginning, we start with like the family and like the trauma stuff at the beginning, and not like the sexy, like this is your dating plan thing, and this is your boundaries, and this is how you know someone's available, because our whole garden is covered with weeds. It's choking out all the life. Nothing can grow, right? We get all these tips like y'all are getting today. You're getting all this insight, and we plant it in the ground, and it gets choked out. Sunlight can't get through. So we got to de-weed and clear out all of this stuff that has been making it very hard and making it very confusing, so that the stuff that we're planting can flourish and bloom, right? So again, if you find that there are things that are triggering you often that feel very big, Cloudboard said, the phrase that I use sometimes is, if it's hysterical, then it's historical. I feel like I haven't said that on live in a long time. If it's hysterical, then it's historical. If your emotional response to something that someone does not match the intensity level, like you get really big or you get really sad or you get really depressed and you don't want to talk anymore and it feels more extreme, it most likely isn't just about what that person did, but it's about all of the things before that remind you of that trauma. Okay? And then the last one that I have for today is the reason why it can be hard for us to use our voice, to tell people. The reason why it can be hard for us to tell people when we're upset is because we're afraid of using our voice. We're afraid of showing up. We're afraid of taking up space. This is for women across ages, across ethnicities, across disciplines too. I have had people who are like straight CEOs be able to throw it down in the boardroom. But when it came to family, when it came to a girlfriend, when it came to a girlfriend both ways, a lover or a friend, platonic partner, they were not able to show up because in those settings, they felt powerless, or they felt very vulnerable. They felt very scared of the rejection. They felt very scared of you losing that person, right? And so that's why a lot of times we can be confused when it comes to these relationship issues, because we can show up like dominant and efficient and successful in some areas. But then like when it comes to friendships or relationships or family, that part is on fire, but we ignore that because we're like, well, it can't be me. This must be temporary because I'm killing it everywhere else, not knowing that it's all interconnected. Rose from Concrete said, you mentioned somatic therapy in one of your other lives. What kind was it? I want to do some somatic in addition to talk therapy. Yeah. Okay. Do you remember what I was talking about using somatic therapy for? Because that'll help. But yeah, I love somatic therapy. You need to do body-based work to work through this. Talk therapy has only gotten me so far, and that's including with coaching. It's including coaching. Y'all, I love what I do, and I have receipts to prove it, that it's helpful. And women need to be able to get in touch with their bodies, because we have trauma that's stored in our bodies as well. And so putting that all together is really important. Okay. So while I'm waiting for Rose from Concrete to tell me more about her question, are there any other questions? Is this making sense? Did this help? What is something that stood out for you? If you don't have any questions, what's something that you're taking with you from this live? Something that touched you, that you needed to hear. I would love to know that so I can know how you're doing. Thank you for the heart, y'all. But yeah, I would love to know what connected with y'all today. And hello to those of y'all who are just joining. I have been talking for about an hour and some change. about why is it hard to tell people when we're upset? What are things that get in the way while we do it? What we miss out on? What makes it hard? So once I stop, you will be able to watch the replay. And so I hope that you enjoy it. I think you just commented. I think you were telling a story about your therapist that was white. Oh yeah, about Amber. Okay, Amber, my girl. You know, one time, just this, you're not asking about her being white, but I thought about this after the live. It is so important for you to find someone who gets it and who is down and who understands, especially if you're at a place where you're looking for someone who looks like you, but you can't. And so you're like, well, you know, I don't want to be re-traumatized by working with someone who doesn't understand your experience. In addition to how she started our time together, which was like, you know, how do you feel with this white body being in the space with you? Like, where do you, like, literally, I was able to tell her to move across the room because I felt like scared or threatened by her. Like, that's literally how our body work started. But there was something that happened that was like really hurtful in the public sector. And Amber was the one who called out. She was like, I think that happened because you're Black. Because I was talking about all these other dynamics. And she was like, I think they did that because they were racist. And I said, what? And Amber is queer. And so she was like, yeah. And so she was like, if this would have happened, would they have said that to me about the populations I'm a part of? But they said that to you. And I was like, girl, how? Anyways, I love Amber. Amber has helped change my life. Okay, so your question is, you mentioned somatic therapy in one of your other lives. What kind was it? Was I want to do something in addition to talk therapy? Okay, so I'm just going to describe somatic experiencing therapy, body work in general. And then if anyone wants to Google and find your own body worker, then do that. So, like I said, we store trauma in our bodies. So our body, there's a really famous book called The Body Keeps Score. I think a better book for somatic experiencing. I never got into that book, just to be honest, even though there's like thousands of reviews on it. I think a better book for women to learn about somatic experiencing is called Call of the Wild by Kimberly Johnson. I think it's her name. It does an amazing job with breaking it down in a way that you actually understand, and talks about the impact on the female experience, on our hormones, on our bodies, on our sexuality. I think it's very well done. But let's say you were in a house where you weren't allowed to really show up and be yourself. You could be someone who tends to have like a lot of restriction in your body, but you don't remember that because it happened when you were so young. And so you could be talking about your experiences with a therapist and like getting things out, but you still find when it's time for you to speak to other people or share your emotions, you get frozen. And you don't know why, again, because you don't have a conscious remembering of how your body felt frozen when you were 3 or 4 years old, but your subconscious does. Your subconscious does. Your nervous system does. So your tongue gets heavy. You start to look away. You might be standing tall, and then when it's time for you to show up, you go like this, right? And so when you go into somatic experiencing body work, it's not about talk therapy at all. You could literally be just in the middle of a story, and your body worker sees that, you know, you start shaking or your jaw gets tight or something. Like, they are so good at like reading how your body is responding to talking about things that you might think are innocuous. And they'll pause you, and you'll start to work through whatever trauma is in your body, right? And so sometimes that working looks like it's basically following the impulses that your body has. So it could look like deep breathing, but it could look like if I am sitting here and I'm thinking about something that was embarrassing to me, and I'm like, you know, I'm used to like telling a story like this, but everything in my stomach wants me to like double over because I feel ashamed. I'm taught how to let my body do what it needs to do. And here's the thing about emotions and trauma that's stuck in your body. once you feel the emotions and once you feel what's going on, it allows your body to release it. The reason why you might feel stuck all the time is because when you start to feel nervous and anxious, you go into your head and you're like, it's okay. Like, you're safe, you're fine. Just do this. Just tell them what you feel. And you go into here while meanwhile your body is on fire and your body is saying, I'm stressed. And so the next time it happens, your body's going to still be stressed. And the next time it happens, your body's still going to be stressed, right? And you're going to start feeling like people have like gut issues and heart issues and all this stuff. So I recommend doing somatic therapy to teach you how to be present, to not be living in fear, to learn how to let go. And yeah, it's just really powerful. I don't know. Because somatic is not like talk therapy or even coaching where you can like say, okay, this is exactly how it's going to go. It's really fluid. When I first started doing body work with somebody else, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I felt like it was a waste of time. I felt like I could get a sentence in before that woman was like, okay, just pause there. And I'm not going to say her name. Let's say her name was Margaret. I would be like, Margaret, God damn it. Like, why am I here? To like sit here. I want to tell you about what that person just did on the road on the way here. I want to tell you about what my daddy said. I want to tell you this. And it's very slow. It's a very slow process, but it works. It works, y'all. And again, Amber, just to say my experience, I could not find a therapist in my area that was trained in it that I liked. And Amber came recommended, but she's not technically a therapist. So there are many people, there are massage therapists, there are doulas, there are somatic experiencing as a training is not something that's restricted to just therapists. So yeah. Cloudboard says, I feel very seen and understood. That's awesome. I've never heard of anyone else speaking of being like avoidant. Yep. You're in the right place, girl. I'm happy that you're here. Or person, I don't know your gender, but I'm happy that you're here. Let's Make It Right say, yes, it's help. I understand that trauma can outweigh common sense. Yep. Absolutely. The ambitious girl said this came at the right time. Another reason I think we ignore addressing situations is because we know that it will also include having to walk away. Ooh, now that's a deep topic, y'all. Ooh, the reasons why we don't walk away. Ooh, do I have time to talk about that? I don't know. I don't think I have time to talk about that, but yeah. To live in reality means that we have to make decisions. And here's the thing, like, once you know you're not ignorant of things anymore, before when you're not aware, you can kind of have the excuse that you didn't know, like life was just happening to me. But once somebody breaks it down what's happening and you start to see it yourself, when you stay, you're actively deciding to stay. Life is not happening to you. And when you want change, you have to actively decide to change. It's not just going to show up in your lap. And either one comes with its pros and cons. Locks. Thank you, Victory. Okay. All right. So that's it, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and hop off. I hope that y'all enjoyed this. Again, you can watch it from the beginning if you joined us late, but I have been talking about why is it hard to tell people that we are upset with them, what we lose, what we gain. Great conversation. I love y'all so much. I missed being on live with y'all last week. I had COVID, so I was out, and now I'm back. And yeah, so again, if these are things that you want to work on, would love to be your coach in our Recovery School coaching program. You can read all about it, read what it entails, read what I teach about. It's lifetime access. I'm constantly creating lessons and adding to it. Like, again, the post I just posted on Instagram right now is a clip of me highlighting one of our lessons that talks about abuse and making sure that we are not abusive in our relationships. So I've built the program so that you can continue to come back to it over time, which students do. So you can go to therecoveryschool.com or our main website, blackgirlsheal.org, and click on work with us, and you can read all about it and join us. And I would love to have you. So that's it. Sending y'all love. Y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.